How can we work to change the narrative around Black-led organizations and highlight the important work that they're doing in their community?
By highlighting it. Yeah. I'll work the back door to make sure they're sustainable, but we need to highlight them and talk about them. I was amazed. I talked to 9 people when I was working on my dissertation, and these people are doing a lot of work, and they're not here. Nobody knows. One woman, she's single-handedly keeping her neighborhood together. She started a garden, then she got a grant so she can teach kids how to garden. And she actually walks around the neighborhood with leaflets to make these people come to the block.
Welcome to the We Got Problems podcast with co-hosts Curtis G. Martin, Rhonda L. Brown, and Caliph Johnson Sr., the one and only podcast where solutions get discussed to our community's everyday troubles. Each week, you will hear mind-blowing conversations and actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to become more effective. We got problems and we got solutions.
All right, you guys, welcome to the show. This is We Got Problems, the podcast. I'm Curtis G. Martin. I'm here with my co-host, Rhonda L. Brown.
Hey, everybody.
Caliph Johnson Sr.
Peace out. How y'all doing?
Lashika Phillips.
Hey, everybody.
And we have a special guest in the house, Dr. O.
Hi.
Hey, Dr. O.
Hey.
Go ahead and tell the people a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do.
Okay. I'm all about nonprofit work, and I'm all about my drive is to help the African American community navigate the nonprofit sector. So I'll go through the academic stuff. I have a Bachelor of Public Affairs from Wayne State University in Detroit. I'm from Detroit. Then I got a master's in management from Cardinal Stritch University, and then I have a master's of doctorate in public policy and administration, specializing in nonprofit management from Walden University.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I have pretty much dedicated my life to the nonprofit sector, but really the reason I went for my doctorate, because nobody listens to us. That's why you walk in the door, you're underestimated. So I figure I would get a doctorate so at least I can be heard.
Wow.
Yeah.
And most recently, though, you were involved in this project, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you were involved in a project where you uncovered some history pertaining to Blacks in philanthropy that was really interesting to me. I hadn't heard that, but there was one piece of history that you shared, and it was that the first Black nonprofits were actually not the founders of AME Church. There were nonprofits before that. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I'm sure most folks don't know that.
Well, my dissertation, I look at African American nonprofit strategies. What did we do to sustain our organizations? They always say we have smaller organizations and all the other stuff they say about us. And then they lump it onto us. But when I was working on my dissertation, I want to know, well, we've been running these organizations. I know because I grew up in them. So what have we've been doing? So when I was doing the research, you have to write a literature review. And my chair told me to write the history of African American nonprofits. And I kind of laughed, because we don't, our history is not documented. And so when I was doing the study, I found out that the first recorded, they call it a benevolence organization, started in 1693.
Wow.
It was the Massachusetts Negro Association. And their mission was to help their enslaved brothers and sisters. So even back then, we were still, helping each other out. And 1693, we had just been here for like 20 years. And we were already developing organizations, recording them with the government, and still trying to help each other. Because that's what Black philanthropy is. It's basically taking what we have or what little we have and giving it to the community. And we've always done that, which is a total opposite of what I call white philanthropy.
Okay. What are some other significant historical facts or myths about Black nonprofits that we should know?
Well, the biggest one I want to overcome is that we don't know how to run a nonprofit. They try to make it like it's intrinsically something about us. That's not true. And the more I'm studying about it, I'm about to write this book on the history of African American nonprofits. Basically, the U.S. started the nonprofit system. You hear about Andrew Carnegie and John, Rockefeller and all that. But what they don't tell you is those two gentlemen, particularly Andrew Carnegie, never developed the philanthropy system with Black people in mind. He actually said that his money was to go for the upliftment of the Anglo-Saxon world. So what happens is the system was never built for us. And what happens is because the system wasn't built for us, we do kind of languish sometimes. Our nonprofits tend to be smaller. We don't have access to a lot of the money. We have to support a wider audience. And one of the reasons is people fund what they understand. And so if there's no Blacks in the boards, the foundations, these staffs, they're not going to fund something they don't understand. And that's what happens. So we have to work harder. Another thing is I just met a doctoral student because she was wondering why it's so much harder for Black nonprofit leaders to work on their organization. She said, all of them seem to have another job. And I said, you're looking at the question wrong. Why is the system so hard that a person has to work full time and still have to, help their community? If you look at the nonprofit system, let me go back to what this nonprofit system is. These white guys raped and pillaged the land. Then they got rich. Now they got to whitewash their backgrounds. So what they do is, and then they get a tax deduction from it too. So they set up philanthropy, and then their white wives had something to do. So they can run a nonprofit at $30,000, $40,000 a year or free because they have the financial backing. The average Black woman and man, we can't do that. We got to go work. But the nonprofit system is set up where you get these ridiculously low salaries, but a lot of these women can do that. We can't. So those are the kind of issues that we encounter trying to run a nonprofit.
Okay. Okay. Do you mind just enlightening us a little bit more on what Black philanthropy is opposed to white philanthropy? Like, what's the difference?
The biggest difference, Black people, what we do, we from Africa, and we have research to show it, they said that Africans are very hospitable people. Probably is why we got so much problems when they came to Africa. We just shoot them and send them on their way back. So we're hospitable, and we always think about the collective. And that is something we got from our ancestors. So we came over here, and with that, there was a book I was reading, I think they call it the African Helping System. We always helped. When you think about it in slavery, all they did was take us off a ship and dumped us and separated us. But we got on those plantations. We took care of our old people. We took care of our young people. We didn't speak the same languages. Nigeria has over 200 languages in itself. But we learned the foreign language. We developed cultures and stuff. We always worked together. So from what little they had as slaves, if it was their little garden or whatever, Black philanthropy is taking that very little that we have and giving of our own for the whole. So for example, I worked for Camp Baber when I was in the AME church. The reason the AME church was able to get that camp because one of the ladies in Southwest Michigan put a second mortgage on her home for $16,000 so the church can have a camp. Her name is not on that camp, but she sacrificed her home so that the church, the community can have a camp. And there's stories over and over, washerwomen, all these churches, our whole culture was built on women, maids, men taking the little that they have and giving it towards the whole. And we still do it now. We're sitting here on a Sunday afternoon. We could be chilling somewhere, but we want to keep giving back to our communities.
Yeah.
And that's Black philanthropy.
So what advice would you give young professionals in our community that want to pursue a career in nonprofit?
I'm really, first of all, realize it's not for you. I mean, the system is not set up for you.
Mm.
And when you know that and you start to understand that, then you don't get so frustrated like I did. One of the things is what my study showed was we're doing what we're supposed to do. We're going to school. We're understanding what it means to be a nonprofit sector. But truthfully, you got to get yourself out among the people, networking. Oh, my daughter always tells me, you got to go to functions. Be willing. If you're going to be a Black and nonprofit, you got to be a bridge. So while you have all of the burdens of raising money and all that, please know you got to make a bridge to the white people so that they understand what we're going through and understand what your mission is. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I learned from those leaders, unfortunately, because it's us, we have to have our I's dotted and our T's crossed. And that is why I really work hard on making nonprofits, Black nonprofits, compliant and sustainable. Because a lot of times we won't just fill out the paperwork. We'll let a $20 form get in the way of. So, I just told a gentleman this week, I said, because you didn't get your 501c3, you've left money on the table.
Wow.
So just put, learning to get that paperwork in, learn the rules, learn the game.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So we've been dealing with COVID for a few years now. Mm-hmm. Has that impacted your work?
For me, it helped me because when everything shut down, I was able to do my research and actually graduate. But it helped enlighten me about why it's so important to get sustainable. Because a lot of, especially Black nonprofits and small businesses, they didn't have their paperwork. And because they didn't get the paperwork, they weren't qualified for stuff. You being penny, what they say, penny wise, pound foolish.
Uh-huh.
Get your board, have a working board, become part of some, different nonprofits and partner with people, talk to funders. My mentor literally goes, it's this one conference and that's where all the banks will go. She got to know every bank person personally. She sat down, this is what I do, blah, 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 blah. And it took extra work because we're not at the country club with them. Mm-hmm. So we're always going to meet them. So she got in their faces and she's retired now, but she got a lot of funding because you just got to pound the pavement. You got to have these people know who you are. You got to show up at these meetings. Mm-hmm. You got to know the rules. We're so busy trying to dodge the rule. We don't even know what the rule is. Find out what the rule is. And I'm going to say this because I told a girl this once. I said, white people are not going to do anything that's going to hinder their money. Mm-hmm. So figure out how to get their money. And how do these nonprofits get that money?
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So how did the massacre of George Floyd or this race awakening in the U.S. affect your work or impact your work?
Well, it's dwindling right now, but then people start looking at what are your issues. And so they start saying they're going to fund it. And a lot of organizations, because Lasheka and I know one, they're starting to look at how do we fund African-American nonprofits. So there is a greater awareness. I say it's dying off now, they got bored again. Mm-hmm. But I think it's upon, we have to keep talking about it. And so really digging up who are these African-American nonprofits, what are they doing, how they're affecting the communities, and keep talking about it, even if they get bored. Because I hope that some people at least got some more connections when they were seeking it out, and we got more names. And we can hold more corporations, hold their feet to the fire, because they said they were going to help us. It's time to come back and say, okay, you said this.
Right.
A check.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm glad you raised that question, Trash, because that's something that I wanted to talk to you about as well, just finding out, because, we're all a part of a new, small nonprofit ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. And our mission is all about advocating and advancing all things connected to Black folks, but specifically entrepreneurship and nonprofit work. That's our passion. That's what our mission is all about. So, and I know this is what I'm about to ask is a loaded question, but let's at least unpack some of it right now. What can people like us, meaning smaller, Black-led, Black-serving nonprofits, and just Black folks in the community, what are some things that we can do to ensure that we do have these seats at the table, that our messages are being amplified?
Well, like I said, there's a lot of associations and in the government. You know, I know we work all day, but you got to get up, at 6 o'clock, you got to drag down to this, especially the local meetings, those local government meetings. You got to get to those meetings. You have to take the time to show up for those association meetings. A lot of the best contacts I ever made was because I showed up for a meeting. Back in December, I showed up for a meeting because somebody was talking about community funding in Detroit. And I was like, okay, let me see what's going on. And I just showed up. And from that, I was able to partner with another guy because we're like, I was saying the thing we're Blacks, we need to do, we need to put our own money together as a community fund so we can fund these things that they don't get. And so now we're working on, he ran with that one. And next thing I know, we're putting together a group of us to just partnering and helping each other in Detroit and coming up with a community fund so we can fund our projects. Because one guy said at the thing, he said, we're not grassroots, we're mud roots. We ain't got no grass.
Wow. Can you say that again?
Well, yeah, I love it. And I told him I'm still in it. He said, we're not grassroots, we're mud roots. We're trying to get some grass. And it was like, you're right. Wow. And the problem is we have studies. There's one study I read when I was doing a dissertation. It said if a neighborhood increases by African American by 15 to 20%, they show we're going to get less government funding. And the community resources in there is going to decrease. And it's simply because they said it's foreign to the people that's donating. If I don't know you, you're different, I'm not donating to you. And typically, the groups we're serving don't have all that money. They can't replace that money. So these neighborhoods, falter. So those are the kind of issues you show up with.
And
can you speak to any successful initiatives or programs that have been implemented to address the disparities in funding and resources between Black-led and white-led nonprofits?
Well, in Detroit, we have what we call Building the Engine, and it was like 2 or 3 years. And there's a guy, Ralph C. Wilson. He funded nonprofits in Detroit, and I think there's another city in New York. So what they're doing is he's looking at the different nonprofits in Detroit. It's not particularly African American, but Detroit's chocolate city. 80% of us is Black. So they're putting through funding. They actually just pulled a grant, and it doesn't look like it's funny though. I can't think of the word all of a sudden. Sabbaticals for nonprofit leaders. Because it's a bunch of tired people. So now they have sabbatical grants so leaders can get a break.
Wow.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
So you mean like when it's the non-restrictive, so it's not, so what category is that falling under? Is it falling under like organizational? How I'm just curious what they're calling that.
Well, it was, I don't know what they're calling it. I know that I was part of the focus group because it was just like, you never get a break and you can't afford to take a break. And it's under that restless resistance.
Oh, wow. We'll have to look into that. I would love to hear more about, you were talking about the community funds.
And the community funds, they have funds. What we do in Ralph C. Wilson, they offer technical assistance. So if you need an attorney, or, and it's like walk in, if you need an attorney, if you need technical assistance or anything. So they've created a directory of consultants, and then they have grants that these organizations can come in and take care of that capacity building stuff that nobody wants to pay for, but need. Because if you're going to be a nonprofit, you got to have all this compliance stuff. Because of the nature of the beast, you have to be compliant. We allow you to be tax exempt because, you're supposed to be doing some stuff. So we got to as a society, make sure you do it. And we don't want to pay for all that. We just want to run for a grant, because that's just driving me. I need a grant. Baby, paperwork. You don't even have 501c3. How are you going to get a grant? I have those conversations. So we have like technical assistance, and I've seen that happen in Detroit. I'm also part of the Alliance for Nonprofit Management, and one thing they're doing is these consultants who have been in these foundations, the white ones, because the black ones, we told them, look, we just got in the door. We ain't gonna be making demands, but they're now telling the foundations, hey, you need to start funding these people and these organizations. So we have a lot of allies that nationally are saying, okay, this is not going to work anymore. You got to start funding these organizations.
Wow. Okay. So how can we work to change the narrative around Black-led organizations and highlight the important work that they're doing in their community?
By highlighting it. Yeah. I'll work the back door to make sure they're sustainable, but we need to highlight them and talk about them. I was amazed. I talked to 9 people when I was working on my dissertation. And these people are doing a lot of work, and they're not here. Nobody knows. One woman, she's single-handedly keeping her neighborhood together. She started a garden, then she got a grant so she can teach kids how to garden. And she actually walks around the neighborhood with leaflets to make these people come to the block club. And she's doing this all on her own.
Wow.
She's not getting a lot. I don't think she's getting paid at all. And we're not telling the stories.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think your long-term outlook for Black philanthropy is? The long term.
My long term, my dream would be we come up with our own funding. We got enough money. One less gym shoe. One less, and set some priorities. So we start taking. I'm tired of begging them. I mean, we can get their money because they owe us anyway. We built the land.
Come on.
But I think a lot of us make enough money now. We could start fund because we understand our issues. Stop begging people to fix our issues. We can fix our own issues. Yeah.
Man.
Okay. What gives you hope for the future of Black-led nonprofits and the broader nonprofit sector?
Yeah, well, it was funny when I was at church today and I was telling my girlfriend, I said, I love those millennials. They're not going to accept stupid stuff anymore, and Gen Z, and that gives me hope. They're not going to. The baby boomers were just surviving, and they got us through. And Gen X, I think we were just tired. But they're not going to accept no, and they're going to crash their way through, and that gives me hope.
Yeah.
Just knock the doors down, give us our cash, we do it, and I like that. I like that approach. Give us our money.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right. Yeah, and I was, if you saw me a decade ago, I would have been no. And I was like, no, we need our money back. So that's what gives me hope. I think all the young folks, they're gonna do this.
Yeah, appreciate that. Hey, look, so this next segment is called our rapid fire segment.
Okay.
So with these questions, we're gonna ask you a question, and you got 20 seconds. Just give us a 20-second answer.
Okay.
All right. So the first one is, what is your why and what make you do what you do?
I'm compelled to because of Christ.
Were there times where you didn't think it would work?
Every day.
Okay. What's the most important thing you've learned in your life?
I'm enough. Yeah.
All right. What would you tell yourself, your 18-year-old self, if you could turn back time?
It's just not that serious.
Ooh.
Do you have a accountability partner, a coach, and a mentor? If so, why?
I need to get my accountability partner together because we both fell off the wayside. I do have a mentor. Why? We don't know it all.
Mm.
And like I said, the one woman I consider my mentor, her experience helped me catapult years of, fighting. I mean, one day she just had me go to a gala and sit next to a banker. And that was like a year's worth of lessons.
Oh, wow.
And I forgot the third one. A coach?
Yeah, coach. Yeah, accountability partner, coach, and mentor. Yeah, coach.
Well, I got a coach because I'm writing a book. And instead of me trying to flounder around, I put some dollars on the table and the dude is writing my book proposal.
There we go.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you could sit down and have a conversation with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Right now, Ida B. Wells.
Oh.
Because I just saw a documentary on her, and she was in the AME church, and there was a point where she had to fight the intelligentsia of the AME church because she was being too fierce for them. And I would like to talk to her because I get in trouble with the intelligentsia sometimes because it's like I said, I'm ready to burn the house down. And so I just want to hear how she had that spirit back then.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. People always say you should save money and invest. What type of assets do you invest your money and your time in?
Right now I got stock, and I'm about to buy a condo, and I'm also about to buy a condo in the Bahamas. I ain't staying here.
Good for you. Good for you. So before we go, and I wanted to ask, I don't know, Curtis, did you have a question?
No, go ahead.
Did you? Okay. So I kind of have two. One is, so we're really big on reading. We're actually all a part of a book club.
Mhm.
And I think I think this year, if we stay on track, we will have read, 20 something books by the end of this year. Is that right?
For this year?
Yeah.
15.
Oh, 15.
Yeah, about 15 or 16.
All right. So my point is we are book lovers, right? If there is one book that you highly recommend, what would that book be?
I can't think of the title, but the one that was on Madam C.J. Walker and her philanthropy, because if you read that book, you'll understand Black philanthropy.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
I might have to add that to the list.
Right.
It won. The reason I'm on the Alliance for Nonprofit Management, I'm on the book award committee. So to tell you, I got 50,000 books. But that book, I can't think, but it's talking about how Madam C.J. Walker, and I will get that to Lasheka, the name of that book. But it shows, because I had just seen an article, they were talking about Rihanna, and they were talking about how she was doing philanthropy even before she was a billionaire. And I was like, no, shit. She's Black.
Right.
That book about Madam C.J. Walker was showing. It wasn't she got $1 million, then she started giving. She started giving. And if you understand that book and how she did it, that's how we do philanthropy.
So is that the one, I think I just pulled it up. Is that the one called The Gospel of Giving?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to add that to our list. So before we go, Dr. O, I know that you are working on a couple of projects. Yeah. So please share with all of the listeners where we can go to find you and what projects would you like to highlight?
The biggest one I want to highlight is the Urban Nonprofit.
Tell us about that.
urbannonprofit.com. My goal is it's going to be an online subscription, but it's going to be the online resource for African American nonprofits. It's a place, I've written a 7-week course on how to run a nonprofit and nonprofit management. I have the data to show that if you do, like I say, and get your one pager done, you can actually run your organization. And I'm going to have office hours. I'm going to have different resources on there, grant opportunities, and just the things that we as Blacks, like you said, how can we get together and get the word out? I want to be the person that's going to help get the word out. So it's called the Urban Nonprofit. It's being created. You can go on there now and see some things, but that's the one place you can reach me.
And that's urbannonprofit.com?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
And that's been my dream for a while. So that's why I'm building it.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, before we close out, Trash, what do you want to leave the people with?
Oh man, find you a good mentor, someone that's doing something good in your community, and really take notes and follow suit.
Yeah.
Let's go, Rhonda.
Oh, find something in your community that you can help with. Like there's always some place to volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
What you got, Lashika?
I was gonna say that. Like what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna say. Rhonda took the words out of my mouth. But literally, I was thinking, like, what after hearing this conversation, like, what am I compelled to do, right? So yes, I'm already a part of a nonprofit, but what else can I do? And I think some of the things that I can do is not just look and see where I can help within my community, but also learn, right? So like I need to find out what email or what email list should I be a part of so that I'll know these stories like what you shared about the woman in Detroit that started out planting a garden in her community. Now she's teaching children. So I think, yes, in addition to finding where you can give back, also find where you can learn and get in on that, right? And get trying to finish and get my thoughts together, but find out where you can learn and just jump in on that. So when I want to find out from you how I can get on some of these newsletters or what newsletters you recommend that we should be on, because as us being a part of a nonprofit, those are things that we should know as well. So
I would say one thing, and it's not Black, but the state nonprofit associations.
Okay.
Oh yeah. You know, whatever state you're in, I would sign up for that nonprofit association.
Oh, excellent. Good to know.
Yeah.
Right, cool. Hey, I would say what I'm gonna lead the people with is, hey, you guys, if you don't have the money, donate your time. And if you have the time, if you don't have the time, donate your money. Either way, it'll help.
Real
Hey, you guys, we have problems, but we also have solutions. And we out.
Thank you, Dr. O.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
Oh, that was good. How y'all
that was
feel?
good. Yeah, that was good.
That was real good.
From the team at CRC Empire, we want to thank you for listening. To stay connected with us, like, share, and subscribe to the We Got Problems podcast. You can find us on social media platforms at Curtis Martin 247, at Rhonda Wrights Official, and at the_trash_vegan_. We got problems and we got solutions.